think we can go.
Okay.
So, a quick intro to you. Already written up, so I have to say it. Otherwise,
Oh, okay.
hurt me badly. You know how it is.
You could ignore it, but yeah, it's fine if Paul's making you do it.
No. So, yes, as I know, you're a co-CEO and co-founder of Boots to Cyber.
Mhm.
And as I just learned, one really robust red team. You have a really robust red team background, which
Yes.
is really interesting. And I will hit you up after this because it sounds really cool. And before I'm rambling on with my half English, half German, I leave the floor to you and keep on working.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Gregor. Good afternoon. Glad to be here, and I appreciate you taking the time to be with me today. So I just listened to Nadja and Tom's talks. They were a lot of great information. So I'll kind of, may hit a couple of things that they said as well. A big thing is time is important, right? So there are a lot of resources, like Tom mentioned, and then also Nadja mentioned, resource overload, right? So again, appreciate you spending the time today and your money to donate for Whole Cyber and for Boost to Book. So really appreciate that. Those are two great nonprofits doing a lot of good things in the cyber community for vets and for non-veterans. So I'll go ahead and get started. Like Gregor mentioned, my name is Patrick Gillespie. So I am in the state of Arkansas. Have been in IT and cyber for 18 years now. I was in intelligence in the military a long time ago. So like Gregor mentioned, the last 6 to 7 years, I've been on the offensive security team, red teams, purple teams, pen testing, those sorts of things. So the last 2 years, though, my transition really to leadership really happened when I started mentoring veterans and military spouses to get into cybersecurity jobs or in careers. So I've mentored about 80 people so far. I've hired about 8 of them, but I am limited by, the market and, the economy. Right now there's a lot of layoffs, hiring freezes, those sorts of things. So, so definitely enjoy mentoring others and helping. So whether, if you have a question from today, if we don't have time for that, or, if you have questions in the future, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, contact me there, message me on email, whatever is best for you. And just like Tom said, there's, a lot of resources out there. And again, be careful what you do. And definitely there's a ton of free resources out there to help you, before you go spend thousands of dollars on a boot camp, right? Some of those, not all of them are bad, but there are things that can help you get to where you need to be. So the first piece of advice, or if there's one thing that you take away from my talk today, and I apologize for not having PowerPoints. They look like stick figures, so, and a bunch of text. So I'm not very good on the digital art side of things. So apologize, you're having to stare at me this whole time. But the one thing that I'd like you to take away from this is, if you're breaking into cyber or from a different industry, if you're coming out of the military, know what your end goal is, right? Because like Nadja mentioned, there's all this information overload, resource overload. You're going to be overwhelmed essentially if you don't know what you're aiming for, because you could start one program and learn coding, development, programming languages, and before you finish that, you start a networking program. Before you finish that, you start ethical hacking. It'd be, all these things sound great, and a lot of them are free, but you really need to hone in on what you're going after, right? Now, it's good to have a little bit of experience in each. I know Tom mentioned it's great to know one programming language like Go or Python, having a good networking background, but your end goal should be, doing what you love at a place you love, right? And I learned the hard way, not to make money the end goal. When early 20s, when I came back from Afghanistan and started working in IT, my goal was a 6-figure salary, right? Spent all years of working hard and getting certifications, getting degrees, and then, finally getting there years later. And that, it's not worth doing all that for the money, right? So, because then I ended up in a bad mental place, doing the things doing things I didn't like to do and didn't want to do. I was just doing them again to make money. So, so trying to figure out what you want to do. So if you are new at this, whether you have IT experience or not, there are a lot of roles in cyber. So that's where a program like Whole Cyber Human Initiative comes into play. So you can go to one place and have a program that will help teach you about all the different roles in cyber, right? So now you get a little bit of knowledge about a lot of different things. It will help you determine what you like and what you don't like, right? So, again, all of it's about narrowing down what you want to do. You know, there's LinkedIn Learning. If you're better and you can get free LinkedIn Learning, try different courses. But once you realize you don't like something, if you hate coding, you know, you don't want to go into DevSecOps, right? If you don't like the cloud stuff, you know, AWS and Azure, you're probably not going to want a cloud job, right? So trying to figure out what you enjoy, because if you enjoy it, you're a lot more interested in it. You're going to, you know, like going to work a lot more. You're going to like upskilling more, and then the money will come. All that effort you put into it, the money will come, but don't make that your reason, because, you know, anytime you get a raise, no matter what industry you're in, you know, after a couple of paychecks, what do you want next? Another raise, right? So you, again, you know, find out what your end goal is. So once you figure that out, that's when you can find mentors to help create the steps to get there. So you don't know what you don't know. So like for me, along with Paul and a few other veterans, we're starting a company called Boost to Cyber, and it's my first time starting a company. So there's a lot of things I don't know, right? So I've met with several business owners that have started companies, and they've told me things that I didn't even know about, didn't even know to Google or to think about, right? Because they've gone through those things. So don't be afraid to ask for help. And then, so when you are looking for a mentor, you want to find somebody that is currently doing what you want to do or has done what you want to do. So if you want to do red teaming or ethical hacking, you know, find people on LinkedIn that you can connect with. If you're a veteran, find other veterans that are doing that or have done that, right? They're more likely to connect with you. If you're not a veteran, find somebody that maybe went to the same college you did, or from the same state, or from the same country, right? So people that you can connect with are more likely to accept your connection, for one, and two, answer your questions. And then, you know, just ask them, hey, you know, would you mind having a monthly phone call just to ask questions about, you know, what do you like about that career or that industry or even that company, right? Because the more specific you can make your end goal, again, the more specific that we can help you make your steps to get there. But the big thing is, you know, as you're going that way, you know, the shortest point from A to B is a straight line, but your career path will never be that. So there'll always be detours. There will always be obstacles in the way. So trying to, you know, think you're going to instantly get from where you're at now to where you're wanting to be tomorrow is most likely not likely. So, or is not likely. So don't quit is what I'm trying to say. You know, keep going until you hit your end goal, and then continue to learn from there, because in cybersecurity and IT, you know, things are constantly changing. So when I got into IT in 2005, I mean, virtualization was barely a thing, much less cloud. You know, it has just completely changed since I've gotten into the industry. So being willing to adapt to changing circumstances and even high stress circumstances, and really doing the things like Nadja mentioned about, you know, meditation. So someone I use for that is a retired Navy SEAL, John McCaskill. He has some free podcasts out there on meditation, and, you know, him really talking you through meditating and focusing on your breath, and you know, the different sensations from each, you know, like your toes wiggling, and, you know, things that you can really ground yourself on, right? So a lot of people go into cyber, especially those getting out of the military, because they hear there's 700,000 jobs open, right? So the problem is, sadly, it's who you know, not what you know, to get into the industry. Wish it wasn't that way. You know, there wouldn't be a lot of effort to try to get, you know, vets into these jobs if the culture was a little bit better at, you know, taking entry-level talent, growing them, creating pipelines and those sorts of things. Because oftentimes businesses take talent from other people, make more money, and those are short-term fixes, right? For a company's, you know, mission, right? You know, there's not a lot doing a lot of long-term. You have a ton of free resources trying to help get that going. But really trying to change the way hiring managers do things, that's a long-term, you know, culture shift. So, but the truth is companies are desperate for cyber talent. There is a true shortage of workers, which leads to burnout for those that are in the industry, right? There is a reduced talent. So that means the people doing the job are doing more than their fair share. So they're having to take that burden on, and they're getting burned out. And like I think Paul or Tom mentioned earlier, you know, people will leave the industry because it's not worth that stress, right? So they, you know, do another industry that's lower stress, you know, maybe lower pay, so on and so forth. But the good news is companies are making that shift. They are hiring vets and non-vets for IT and cyber jobs without that degree or those certifications and experience. There are great companies out there that are like TCM, providing low-cost training to help remove those barriers to entry, right? So best case is finding a company that will pay you to learn and then pay for your training, right? So again, that's kind of best goal. And because when you're getting an interview, when you're interviewing a company, you want to interview them as well, because if they're not investing in you, you know, a lot of times the company culture is, you know, what if we put money in them and they leave, right? Well, the opposite of that is, well, what if we don't invest in them and upskill them and then they stay, right? So now you got a lot of people that haven't grown in their career or in their education, and now you have a lot of people that are just complacent, right? So you're not getting the best value from your employees. So it's great to be in a company that does enforce, you know, upskilling. And, you know, where I work full-time at Guide Point Security, we're very big on, you know, continuing education and training and helping people get to where they want to be in their careers. So all these jobs, so if you go to LinkedIn or Indeed, any of these job boards, so if you LinkedIn, go to LinkedIn jobs, you search for like SOC analyst or ethical hacker or, you know, governance, risk and compliance. There are jobs out there, but if you go to CyberSeek, they'll show hundreds of thousands of jobs, right? So where are all these jobs? Well, CNBC has had an article in the last couple of years that states that 70% of all jobs are never advertised publicly. HubSpot said 85% of jobs are filled by networking. So those are the two sources for the statistics. Don't know how accurate those are, where they got their data from. But if those statistics are even closely true, now that means those jobs you're seeing on LinkedIn and Indeed, those are 15 to 30% of the jobs that get filled. Still a lot of jobs, right? Even if it's, you know, 30%, and if there's 750,000 jobs open, you know, 10% of that 75,000, so a couple 100,000 of jobs, let's say, are on LinkedIn for cyber. Well, that leaves another 500,000 that are still out there. Well, where are they? Well, as a hiring manager in cybersecurity, it is often difficult to post an entry-level job, right? A remote one specifically, because now you have the entire world looking for these jobs, and you'll get 1,000 people to apply. So now you have to differentiate between 1,000 people, you know, who's going to be a good fit for the organization, because a lot of them have degrees. A lot of them have A+, Net+, Security Plus, you know, a lot of the same certifications. So if you're applying for that job and you're competing with 999 people, you know, how do you really differentiate yourself without having a conversation with them? So that is why people apply for 100 jobs or 200 jobs and not get a phone call because you're competing with a lot of people. Makes it very difficult. And Jeff has been rejected by 499,000. Well, just keep going, Jeff. All you need, you need one call. So hopefully we'll get you there. So two things are needed to get a job, right? So we've mentioned education, degrees, we've mentioned certifications and different vendors and all these things. So, because when you start talking to mentors, some are going to say, well, you have to go get a bachelor's. Well, you have to go get Security Plus, or you have to have CISSP. Those things are all great. I have those. I have a master's, certs, all that good stuff. But 90% of what I've learned has been on the job. So the two things you really need to get a job is an interview and a job offer, right? So what if you could tap into those 70% of jobs that aren't publicly posted and get an interview and get a job offer? That's, to me, a much better route. That is, I'm not saying don't do the degrees or the certs, because those things are great. And each thing you do, again, those are different. You are differentiating yourself for those that don't do that. So I am pro education. I've been to 8 colleges. I'm pro certification, got a ton of them. But to get that interview, the way a lot of people are doing now, just applying for job after job after job, it may eventually work, but it is frustrating. It can get overwhelming. Especially if you're unemployed, having to take care of your family, that's a bad situation. So networking is the key to tapping into those 70% of jobs that are not advertised publicly. And again, HubSpot saying 85% of jobs are filled by networking. That means it's who you know, not what you know, sadly. So finding people that you connect with. So if you get on LinkedIn, so let's say you want to be a ethical hacker, whatever, red team, pen tester. So you get on, LinkedIn, you start finding people that are doing that job. And then you want to sort by past company. So if you're a veteran, sort by people that used to work at the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, National Guard, Space Force, all that. So you want to search. Now you're searching for veterans that are doing what you want to do, or maybe have a cert that you want to go after, right? So now they're more willing to connect with you and help give you advice, right? Meet with you, so on and so forth. And the more people you do that with, the more likely somebody is going to know that a job's available internally at a company, or know a hiring manager that needs someone and can refer you directly. So now you're skipping applying for all those hundreds of jobs, those sorts of things. Because if they can get someone to vouch for you, that's often how entry-level jobs are filled. It's probably not the right way, but that's just speaking from my experience, that's just what I've seen. That a lot of people can get, have higher chances of getting an interview, going that route. So the job offer is the second piece, right? So we talked about, doing targeted networking, specific networking for getting the interview. So for the job offer, that's where the certifications, that's where the degree, that's where the experience that you have, and you can have experience and not be paid for it, right? We'll get here in a little bit. I'll get into examples that you can do of things you can do for free on your own to gain experience in certain skills and technologies without having to pay a boot camp, without having to go get a degree in it. These sorts of things, that way you can put it on a resume and be able to talk about it during the interview, right? So all these things you're doing with skills and upskilling, those things are great, and they will help you get the job offer once you get the interview. But again, oftentimes, or at least in the last 5 to 10 years, getting the interview, it has been very difficult. There's a lot more HR automation, and again, a lot more competition for remote jobs, especially since COVID. So networking. So if you're a veteran, some free mentoring platforms. Veterati is a great one. That's where I got started. I have several mentors on there and I have several mentees. So I feel like everybody should be a mentor. So wherever you're at right now in life, there is somebody that will want to be where you're at, whether that's, separating from the military, or, maybe you have a degree and trying to break into cyber, maybe someone's wanting to get into that degree program, so on and so forth. So there is someone behind you that will eventually, try to get to where you want to be. So I definitely encourage everyone to be a mentor, and also, be a mentee as well, or have a mentor. So, no matter, like I have several mentors. I've been in the industry for 18 years. There's always more to learn, right? Because the day you know everything, right, you don't learn anymore. So definitely a big proponent in continual learning. Read books, you're going to learn a lot more. Be open to other people's views. Now, you're going to hear a lot of different things you may not agree with, but might give you a different, outlook. And Nadja talked about empathy, listening to other people's points of views, and, those sorts of things. You may not agree with, you're probably not going to agree with everything I say, or not everything anybody says, but having empathy and understanding that's where they came from based on their experience. So reading books helps a lot with that. American Corporate Partners, they have free mentoring. Boosted Books has a lot of, we have a couple free cyber hiring fairs a year. I already mentioned LinkedIn. If you're a vet, you can get free premium account. VetSec's a great program. They help a lot of people there, especially, Tom, like you mentioned, being a resource for other free programs that give free and discounted training for several people, veterans and law enforcement and those sorts of things. Let's see, and several companies have programs as well, whether that's an apprenticeship program or paid internship. Several have military programs, so definitely look into those as well. You may be able to, that may be the path for you to getting that interview, is doing a 3-month paid apprenticeship or 3-month paid internship. So check with the state you're in, or if you're in a different country, the country you're in, see if there's any state funded or federal funded programs to help you break into IT or cyber jobs. All right, so we've talked about the interview process. We've talked about the job offer. The biggest thing is setting yourself apart. So again, degrees are great, certifications are great, experience is great. So, but again, you got a lot of people in the world doing the same things. So take advantage of as much free training as you can. Building home labs is great. So when I interview people, ask, what's your home network look like? So let's say you have, you can do it with a laptop, MacBook, Windows laptop. So you can set up VirtualBox, you can set up VMware or Hyper-V. There's a ton of free resources for home use, right? You can free Sophos firewall. You can do, download any operating system, even the ones that cost a lot of money, like Windows Server or some of the higher end Linux ones. You can download and get free trials, right? So you can download a Windows operating system for server, set up Active Directory, learn how to create users and do group policy, and learn what DNS and DHCP does. So as you learn each of these protocols and technologies and skills and so on and so forth, now you can start adding these keywords to your resume because you understand what they are. You set up a domain controller, you set up a DNS server, you understand that DNS is how, computers go from a domain name like boostedbooks.com to its IP address, right? So that's, how it's just changes the domain name to an IP. So learning how to set that stuff up, because if you put it on your resume, you need to be able to talk about it, right? So if they see your resume and you put DNS, DHCP, TCP/IP, these different protocols, and they say, hey, what do you know about it? And you say, well, I have a home lab, I've set up a domain controller, I have my own internal DNS server, so on and so forth. You can download a copy of Windows 10, join it to your domain. Download a copy of Kali Linux if you want to get into pen testing. Pen test that Windows computer, pen test that server inside your home network, right? So now you're doing the things that you would be doing on the job. Again, you're not going to be an expert, but you can put it on your resume as experience because you're doing it, right? You don't have to go get paid to say you've set up a domain controller. So, and then also for cloud is huge. Cloud continues to grow. You can go do a free trial at AWS, free trial of Microsoft Azure. So go set up these same machines in these cloud environments and learn the different terminology between, because let's say you love cloud, you go through whole cyber, you figure out, I want to be a cloud engineer. Well, you dive head first in and you go get 5 AWS certs. That's great. So you get, let's say you get an interview, you've networked, you got an interview, for a cloud position. You get there and they say, what do you know about Microsoft Azure? So, well, I know a lot about AWS. So, and hopefully if they posted a job, then they hopefully put in there what cloud skills they want you to have. So you can kind of be aware of that, but you don't want to limit yourself to one vendor. So if you did 1 or 2 AWS, 1 or 2 Azure, then now you're more likely to be able to talk about the product they have, right? Now, if they use Google or Oracle, but AWS and Azure are the 2 biggest. So that's why I mentioned those. So don't go too deep into one vendor. 20 years ago, Cisco was all over the place, right? There were a lot of places that were Cisco shops, Cisco phone systems, Cisco switches, routers, firewalls, all of that. So back then, that's why I ended up getting a lot of Cisco certifications. But as my career's gone on, a lot of other companies have come in and now are competitors to Cisco, Fortinet and their much lower priced firewalls, or, Juniper and switches, or Dell and Force 10 switches, and, all these other phone systems like ShoreTel and, Mitel, all these competitors. So there's not as many, places that are doing one vendor for all of that anymore. So it's good to have a little bit of knowledge about each area, because you want to be able to talk about the things that they want you to know about in the interview, right? And sadly, a lot of times, so I've changed jobs a couple of times in the last 2 years, and going through interview processes and, and onboarding processes, I've kind of realized that even as a hiring manager, people want you to know a lot during the interview, right? They ask you all these questions, want to see how you respond to them, kind of want to see where you're at. But then when you get hired and you start the job, they really don't care as much that you know all of that, because they want you to do the job the way they want you to do it. So even though I had, nearly 20 years experience and degrees and certs, I still had to go take 3 months at the company I work for now and the company before that to learn their processes, their reporting requirements, the way they work with clients, and so on and so forth. So that's why, it's great to do the certs and the skills things you're doing now, but don't feel like that's the end. So once you get the job, you're going to start learning even more, right? So just be prepared for that once you break into cyber. And another thing I kind of like about CompTIA certs, they are lower cost than like EC Council and some of the others, but they are, vendor agnostic, where, Net Plus is about basic networking. It's not a Cisco proprietary certification, nor Security Plus. It's not, again, not proprietary, and it's not reliant on one vendor. And CompTIA also has the Cloud Essentials. I know Paul mentioned, the CISA Plus, being, the equivalent of the Certified Ethical Hacker on the DoD, 8570. So if you're wanting to work for a government contractor or work for the government, there are other cheaper options you can do. So we talked about kind of setting up, a basic home network, right? You can set up your own wireless, set up, VLANs. When I did, I say I got burned by a boot camp, but I did a boot camp, I guess in 2005. paid for a CCNA boot camp, several $1,000s. And after 5 days of all day training, like I was more confused than when I started. Like I did not feel comfortable going to take the test. So it was another 5 years before I became CCNA certified, because, you know, in 2005, I was a system administrator doing Microsoft Active Directory and server backups and email exchange related things. So I didn't get a networking job till 2008. So once I got a hold of a managed switch and a router and actually configured a VLAN, that's when it clicked. So, you know, reading a book about VLANs and, you know, the difference between layer 2 and layer 3, and, you know, when does a packet stay between the switches? You know, when does it go to the default gateway at layer 3? You know, it didn't click until I configured it. And, you know, doing that for an hour made a lot more sense to me than that week-long boot camp, right? So again, that's just how I learned better. So once I was doing the job and learned on the job every day, then I felt comfortable, you know, a year and a half later, and went and passed CCNA. So so big proponent of, you know, jumping in, doing the work. You know, again, you can get a free trial of anything. You know, there's a ton of virtual things you can do. So whatever, you know, whenever you're meeting with a mentor, you know, ask them, hey, what software trials can I get that will help me learn to do what I need to do on the job, right? If you want to do digital forensics, you know, going and getting, you know, free trials of that. And there's even open source, there's a ton of open source stuff that you can learn just to get started. And then do trials of the more, you know, professional enterprise products. Like for vulnerability scanning, you know, get OpenBoss, you know, set that up, learn how to, you know, do new scans, and, you know, and then go manually check for false positives, or, you know, exploit, you know, the vulnerabilities that you found that have known exploits. And then do a free trial. You can get a free home license for Tenable Nessus. I think you can scan 16 IPs with that. So in Qualys, you can get, I think, free 30-day trials. So for vulnerability management jobs, you know, go learn how to set up and maintain a vendor's product for a month. Do that 3 or 4 times. Now you're pretty well versed in how each vendor does it, what they call each piece, because oftentimes their interface is the differentiator, right? What they call something. Like same thing with cloud. You know, just getting familiarity, because that way when you do get that interview through networking, hopefully you will be able to talk about all the things you did, and that shows you taking initiative and learning that on your own, right? Again, while you're, you know, you'll probably be doing other stuff too, getting a degree or certifications as well, and all those things are great. Again, it's all about differentiating yourself. I have a lot of search listed. Let's see. You know, Fortinet has some free, you know, I think NSE level 1, 2, and 3, I think is free on their site. There's a ton of stuff you can do in Udemy. You know, Udemy and I think maybe Coursera are pretty low cost education platforms where you can learn a lot of things again, but you can go do way too much and overload yourself and get burned out if you don't know what direction you're going, right? So that's where, you know, and if you don't know, you know, that's where the whole cyber human initiative comes into play. Oh, and Paul just said, you know, you can get Splunk Enterprise. Splunk is huge. You know, learning that. And then you know, just again, and you may not know where you want to go, even you go through whole cyber, you know, reach out to Paul, or reach out, you know, to Tom at VetSec, or, you know, or me on, you know, LinkedIn or through Boost to Cyber. You know, there are people that want to help you. So oftentimes the biggest part is discovering what you want to do, because once you do that and you feel like, and you know what you love to do, then it's going to make all that other stuff so much easier, because you're excited about it. You want to do it. So if you know, if there's 1,000 SOC jobs out there and you hate being a SOC analyst, and you're going to get certified SOC analyst, and, you know, doing these things to go down that path, you're not going to look forward to it. And then if you get a job doing it, you're just going to be miserable until you look for another job, right? So that's the worst thing that we want to have happen is, you know, you finding you know, taking a job or doing all these things to do something you hate. You know, that is definitely not what you want to do. All right, let's see. Oh, Jeff just mentioned with the whole cyber, there's several Splunk modules in there as well. Let's see. Okay, so and the team mindset. So, you know, the cyber affects everybody. Doesn't matter what industry, business, you know, education, healthcare, government, doesn't matter. It affects everyone. Because you can have the best defenses in the world. You can have a full cyber team like at Uber. Uber got hit twice last year. You know, MFA fatigue, you know, they had two-factor, you know, but the attacker just kept hitting it. They had the password instead of the guy changing his password, he finally just hit okay and let him in. So, you know, and there's no telling how much Uber spends on, you know, cyber protection and defenses and firewalls and, you know, intrusion detection, all these things. You know, it takes one mistake, right? And employees are busy, you know, clicking a link on an email, you know, a lot of people think, well, what's the big deal? Well, it can let ransomware in the industry or the bank or the business, whatever. But the big thing is, you know, don't try to do it alone. Don't try to go down your training path alone. Don't go down your career path alone. You can go fast alone, but you're going to go a lot further with other people. Again, there are a ton of, you know, the people that spoke today, all willing to help you. A lot of times, and as a veteran, I know it's hard to ask for help. And typically, when I get calls on Veterati, for some reason, around that 100 application mark, I get a call and says, hey, I've applied for 100 jobs and I haven't got a phone call. So I'm not saying don't do that, but ask for help sooner. You know, don't wait until you've given up on applying for jobs and then ask for help. Ask for help now. Find mentors, find people. Don't just have one mentor. Have you know, several that you know care about you and want to help guide you. You know, not all of them will be hiring managers. Not all of them are going to get you the job, but they may give you advice. And you never know if they might have a connection that can help you get the job that you want to be with. And oftentimes, you know, if they're giving you advice that you don't really want to follow or don't feel like it's right for you, you know, just thank them and then, you know, don't keep meeting with them. It's okay to let go of your mentors. Don't feel like you have to keep meeting with somebody because, you know, if they're giving you their time and advice and you're not following it, it's really a waste of your time and theirs. So just be mindful of your mentor's time. And also, you know, like I said, be mindful of your time as well. But once you hit your end goal and you get into cyber, you're going to have new goals, right? You're going to want to be proficient and an expert in that job and then upskill and move up into your career, whether that's with that company or another company. But as your career grows, your mentor list should grow as well, you know, based on the career path that you're wanting to go. So that is all I have. Looks like we have some a lot of comments. Let's see.
Yeah, not too many questions, just more comments about free stuff.
Okay. So Quentin posted, it's Scrapes free Udemy courses. So that's cool. I haven't heard of that one. Yeah, Jeff mentioned everyone in cyber has been extremely helpful. It's very different in cyber compared to, let's say, manufacturing. You know, if you want to go be a manufacturing engineer, what do manufacturers hold close? What do they make proprietary and put up copyrights and trademarks and all these things? It's their product, right? So they don't share those secrets. Well, cybersecurity, what is there more of in cyber? It's open source products. Manufacturing doesn't do the open source model. Cyber does. So you got all these people doing all this amazing work and giving it away for free, just like all these great companies and nonprofits that are doing these things for free or discounted rates, you know, compared to those, you know, I know we pound on boot camps a lot. They're not all bad, but, you know, if you can get to where you want to be and not have to shell out $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, you know, is that not a better path than going down that route, right? And it'll be great once Tom gets that data and shares all these organizations that have high, graduation rates and low placement rates, right? So that's sad. I mean, it really is. So so that'll be interesting when he gets that out. So yeah, so keep that in mind. So that's a great thing about cyber, is the knowledge sharing and the help, but you're still dealing with companies, you're still dealing with HR departments and legal departments, and the way that hiring has been happening for 20, 30, 40 years, right? Because you still got a lot of people that have been in the industry for decades, and they still hire the way they did in the 90s. So, or 20 years ago. So, and times have changed, right? And it takes culture a long time to change. So looks like Paul, saw you put a mentor agreement in there.
That's something that I think not a lot of people ever think about, right? Is, in the military, we create individual development plans wherever we go.
Yep.
And
No, that's
I've
good.
adopted it into my post-retirement, because we all know cybersecurity, information technology, InfoSec, it's resource overload.
Right.
So when you get a mentor, the great thing about this agreement is it gives you the ability to fire them. Hey, you're not meeting my expectations, or you keep pushing XYZ cert down my throat, and I still need to gain this knowledge. Gives you that ability. And it also gives you a written contract to say, okay, I know I have to get these trainings done before I work on anything else that becomes encumbersome.
No, that's great. Yeah. Cause yeah. And oftentimes, when a mentor meets with someone and they never, schedule another call, then usually, maybe hopefully they found better advice, or hopefully what you said helped. So that's a good, and having clear expectations, because it's a lot easier for a mentor to help you if you tell them clear expectations on, here is what I want to do. So if you give them the end goal, what your vision is for your career, again, they'll help, mentor and shape you and guide you through that process. They're not going to do it for you, but they can help create those next steps. So if you don't feel like the next steps are taking you in the direction you want to go, try, find another mentor. So that's great, Paul. So are there any questions? I know that's a lot of me rambling, and
I think a lot of the questions, and you probably know it as well, but a lot of the non-veteran, non-military, non-first responders that we have in the audience, where could they go to find a mentor outside of LinkedIn?
man, LinkedIn just has a lot of good connections. Honestly, trying to think of any, can't think of really any free ones. So there's a ton of people out there that will charge for, professional coaching or mentoring fees. To be honest with you, I don't really know any free mentoring service.
Well, there is Cyber Mentor Dojo.
Okay.
That's obviously a Discord server. So,
and check with your state, because I know, like I'm in Arkansas, so Arkansas Center for Data Sciences, they have programs to help you, reskill or upskill into IT and cyber jobs. So, they'll provide a mentor, they'll provide either a paid apprenticeship or internship. They'll help pay for training, and that's for anybody in the state of Arkansas. You don't have to be a veteran, you don't have to be a first responder. You can be a high school graduate and no experience, no anything, and get into the career industry you want. Let's see, SCORE has SCORE. I think that's more for business mentors.
they mentioned Cyversity, which is Olivia Rose. Very great organization. Just kicked off in the middle of the year last year.
Nice.
Consortium of CISOs.
Okay. Yeah, looks like they represent women and underrepresented minorities. So that sounds like a great program. I've not heard of that one. So yeah, definitely look into Cyversity. Yeah, I mean, Google, but the thing is so let's say you're in an area that has a job you want. So at a company, again, I'm in Arkansas, so, Walmart's headquartered in Arkansas. So if I wanted to go get a job at Walmart, get on LinkedIn, look at all their employees, and again, try to find something that connects you, even if it's a a shared like, trying to think of something other than like sports related, or follow people that work at that company and in that department you want to work in, follow their posts, comment on their posts, do that a few times, and then message them about, hey, I've enjoyed seeing your post, seeing your articles, love to buy you coffee or love to buy you lunch, or, especially if it's local. If it's, so to me, the local piece would make a lot more sense. If you're trying to do something in another state, remote's kind of back and forth now, since, a lot of companies are kind of going to a more hybrid approach than straight remote back when COVID was a lot worse. But yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'll have to research that. I need to find out more mentorship platforms for everyone. But yeah, I definitely check your state, because most states have a program to create more tech jobs in the state, each state.
And then if you're a lady that's trying to get into cyber, check out the SANS SANS scholarship. They do host it twice a year. So I think May is going to be the next opening. It's very competitive. The pre-assessment is no joke.
WESIS, the Women in Cybersecurity program, is great too. Chamaria Gonzalez, she's involved with that heavily in Houston, Texas. So if you're in a city, there may be a WESIS community that can help and they provide, free training and free help for that. Looks like they even have a Fortinet NSE4 program too, because I know NSE4 is a paid program. So that's a great, and they have a mentor-mentee program at WESIS as well. Looks like it's sponsored by Workday. So yeah, there are programs out there. Yeah, it's just trying to figure out what what you can apply for. All right, I know time's running out. I know probably give y'all a few minutes back to take a break before the next talk. But Paul, do you have any other questions?
No, I posted the link for email recruiter@Boost of Cyber. If you're a veteran, male spouse, first responder, or transitioning service member, definitely send us your resumes. And I'll be seeing you on Whole Cyber Human Initiative if you go that route.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate your time, everybody. And like I said, hope y'all have a great afternoon and a great weekend.